This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
For anyone who pays attention to such things, it is obvious that the Republican Party is the party of oppression. It is not the party of equality. Or more plainly stated, it is the party of inequality. It is the party of racial injustice, of racial oppression. It is the party of white supremacy. It just is. Voter suppression tactics, backing police brutality, doing everything they can do to ensure that the truth doesn't come out in cases of unarmed black men being gunned down or smothered, murdered in the streets. This is the legacy of the Republican Party. This is who they are. And I want to talk about today these two headlines juxtaposed against one another. Liz Cheney, I'm trying to read it through the paper here. Liz Cheney says GOP must make, I can't do it through the paper, must make clear that we aren't the party of white supremacy. Dated yesterday, New York Times. Also, Stephen Miller, set to brief House conservatives. These two things are in 100% opposition to one another. There is no way to mesh these two things. You're either the party of white supremacy, who has Stephen Miller brief you on immigration, or you're not. Or you are, as Liz Cheney wants to be, not the party of white supremacy, ignoring the history of the modern history of the Republican Party. Now I want to read a little bit, very briefly from this New York Times article, 3 short paragraphs, and then I want to talk about what it says in the Politico article and exactly what it is that Republicans are trying to do here. They're doubling, listen, here. After the 2012 loss, after Mitt Romney's 2012 loss to Barack Obama, the Republican Party went through this period of soul searching, and an after-action report, as it were, where it was done, and there was a report issued about what the Republican Party needed to do to broaden its base, to reach out to a wider cross-section of America, because they saw the writing on the wall that they were done. And in that report, chiefly their strategy was to reach out to Latino Americans. And then enter Donald Trump, who did the exact opposite of that, who in his campaign opener called Mexicans rapists. But he assumed some were good people. And that's the state of the Republican Party. They jettisoned the after-action report and onboarded Donald Trump's white supremacy. And Donald Trump onboarded active white supremacists around him, like Steve Bannon, like Stephen Miller. So I don't know what Liz Cheney thinks her Republican Party is. The rest of us see it pretty clearly. Reading from the New York Times, this article entitled, Liz Cheney says GOP must make clear that we aren't the party of white supremacy. Representative Liz Cheney of Wyoming, the number 3 House Republican, on Tuesday called on her party to, quote, make clear that we aren't the party of white supremacy, end quote, arguing that elected Republicans must forcefully condemn those responsible for the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Quote, it's very important for us to ignore the temptation to look away, unquote, from the attack, Ms. Cheney said during a virtual foreign policy event hosted by the Reagan Institute. It's very important, especially for us Republicans, to make clear that we aren't the party of white supremacy. You saw the symbols of Holocaust denial, for example, at the Capitol that day. You saw the Confederate flag being carried through the rotunda. And I think we as Republicans in particular have a duty and an obligation to stand against that, to stand against insurrection. We have a duty as Americans, not just as Republicans, Liz Cheney. But I don't know what is causing your blindness, your inability to see the writing on the wall, to see what your party is. Because as I mentioned, dated the same day, yesterday, Politico did this piece. The architect, in the article, they're talking about how Donald Trump is going to be talking at CPAC either this week or this weekend. And prior to that, and in his speech, by the way, as an aside, jumping back, as an aside, he will be talking about immigration. He'll be doubling down on racism and white supremacy and xenophobia, as was the policy objective of his administration while president. And Republicans apparently are down. They're down with that. The architect of Trump's immigration policy, this article from Politico, by the way, and if you want to read it, is entitled, Stephen Miller Set to Brief House Conservatives. The meeting is the latest indication that the GOP is keen on keeping Trump-era immigration politics and using them as a spear against Biden. The architect of Trump's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, will discuss the issue with conservative House members as they organize their opposition to Biden's planned changes to Trump-era immigration regulations and his recently unveiled blueprint for comprehensive immigration reform legislation. Miller, whose opposition to nearly all forms of immigration earned him the admiration of Trump and the enmity of others, will be joined at the Wednesday meeting by Tom Homan and Mark Morgan, two former top immigration officials, according to a person involved with the planning, and first reported by The Hill. All three of the men played integral roles in enacting many of Trump's most controversial immigration policies, including the separation of migrant children from their parents upon arriving in the United States without authorization. The gathering was organized, and here's where we get into why it is I say they are the party of white supremacy, that it's not a fringe group of individuals. Liz Cheney is an island unto herself saying these things, because the bulk of the Republican Party is on board with white supremacy, is on board with anti-immigration fear-mongering. Listen to these numbers. The gathering was organized by the 147-member Republican Study Committee, a group of traditionalist conservative lawmakers that also has met recently with other Trump administration officials, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Fox News host Tucker Carlson, not a white supremacist at all. Tucker Carlson, who says immigration makes our country poorer and dirtier, as well as the group meeting with former Vice President Mike Pence on Tuesday. There's a word in here that the New York Times is playing a little coy with, and that is traditionalist. Organized by the 147-member Republican Study Committee, a group of traditionalist conservative lawmakers. That means individuals who want to keep America white. Traditional Republicans. Traditionalists. Let's call it what it is. Immigration is quickly emerging as a prime motivator for conservatives in the Biden era, and Republicans, including Miller, have criticized the ambitious 357-page immigration plan introduced on the president's behalf last Thursday by Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat of New Jersey, and Representative Linda Sanchez, Democrat of California, in apocalyptic terms. Quoting Stephen Miller, it's the most radical immigration bill ever written, drafted, or submitted in the history of this country, Miller said during an appearance on Fox News. It's breathtaking. The Biden bill, which would provide a pathway to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants, incorporates many provisions supported by Republicans in the past, as well as by business groups today, but it leaves out border security investments that have typically attracted GOP support, suggesting to many in Congress that it was a messaging measure designed to fail. Tell me again how the Republican Party is not the party of white supremacy when they fearmonger. about the brown menace at our southern border. Listen, immigration makes our country better. Immigrants make our country better. First generation, second generation immigrants have a lower crime rate amongst them than native-born Americans. These people pay their taxes. They contribute to the economy in ways, immeasurable ways. They are culturally beneficial. It is only fear of losing some stake of white supremacy, and I don't use that as that term loosely. I mean it in all ways. I mean in an active movement of being white hate groups, and I also mean as far as the historical power structure of the United States. That it has been a white supremacy. There has been white supremacy in America. And the Republican Party wants to maintain that because they see, as I said before, the writing on the wall, that the white majority in America is evaporating right before their eyes. That we are truly becoming a melting pot. And that scares the hell out of them. They cannot handle it. And Liz Cheney is either beating a crazy drum here, or she is willfully trying to mislead people as a bid to rehabilitate her party. Because not only did we witness the Capitol insurrection with the Camp Auschwitz shirts and all the nastiness and the Proud Boys and the white nationalists, we all witnessed it live on television. But we also witnessed the last 4 years with Donald Trump, with Stephen Miller in his ear. All it's going to take is for us to push the remaining Republican Party off the cliff. Keep voting Democrat. Keep convincing your neighbors, your family, your friends, your acquaintances, your coworkers of the importance of this moment in history. Anyway, I would love to know what you think. Please leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. You can always email me daily at dollemore.com. I appreciate all of the communication, all of the engaging with my content. It is fantastic. I would ask you to please consider supporting my work here on YouTube for as little as $2 a month. You can become a channel member, click the join button below the video, and help support independent commentary, independent analysis of today's headlines. Follow me on social media. I'd love to connect with you there, and I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine. Take care of one another.